Hi everybody, my name's Hannah Lockwood and I'm a PhD student at the University of Derby. I am studying domestic cats, but more importantly predation by domestic cats and how that can impact prey populations here in the UK. I will say that my dog, I do have a dog and he does tend to cry sometimes when I'm on video calls, so he may start, so we'll just try to ignore him. I've tried to pacify him with some treats, so we'll see how that works out for us. So the project itself is called What the Cat Dragged In, and today I'm going to take you through a few of the things that we've found out so far. Okay. So the domestic cat also goes by its Latin name, Felis sylvestris catus, was first domesticated from the North African wildcat, Felis sylvestris lybica, and that was about 10,000 years ago. And that coincided with the domestication of crops in the Fertile Crescent. So it's thought that cats were kept around to keep vermin away from food stores. So we know that cats kill wildlife. Any cat owner will tell you that, but we don't know exactly how much they kill. We know how much, we've got a good idea of how much they return home, but we don't know exactly what they're killing, what they're maybe eating, or what they're discarding that the owner doesn't get to see. And we don't exactly know how that can impact the prey populations themselves. So whether we could be seeing a decline in birds as a result of cat predation, for example. So my research aims to look into that a little bit further. Now, domestic cats are invasive. They're non-native species and occur on all continents. So they're all over the world. They're on some Antarctic bases. They're also on very small oceanic islands, to huge, vast areas of mainland like Australia and Europe, and also places like New Zealand where they don't have any native land mammals. Now, owned cats aren't limited by what we call a natural carrying capacity. And what that means is that their population size doesn't decrease with food shortages and disease outbreaks and things like that. So our owned cats at home, they have ample food. We give them lots of treats. We vaccinate our cats so they don't get disease. If they do get disease, we tend to it very quickly. We tend to any wounds so that they don't get infected, and we give them warm shelter as well. And that's regardless of population size or density. So unlike a natural system, whether there are 100 cats in an area or 500 cats in an area, the health of that population will be the same because we're caring for them at home. Now, in terms of feral cats, the UK has relatively few. So I'm not investigating feral cats in this study. So relatively few when we compare to places like the Americas and Australasia, where a lot of the previous literature has been conducted. So there are 4 commonly used methods to look into predation by cats. And the first is scat analysis. Scat is another word for feces, so that's essentially digging through cat feces, which sounds like a wonderful job. And you're looking for evidence of what that cat might have eaten. So you're looking for things like bones, scales and feathers and things like that. The second is stomach and gut analysis. So that's very similar. Again, we're looking for the same sort of evidence, but just in the stomach and in the intestines as well. And those two both tell us what's been eaten, and they're primarily done on feral cats for 2 reasons. So firstly, the stomach and gut analysis has to be done on deceased cats. So those are usually cats which are part of a control program. And then scat analysis, it's much easier for researchers to collect scat samples out in the open, out in the wild, rather than in people's gardens where they may be buried. So it's much easier to collect those from feral cats than it is to collect them from owned cats and digging up people's gardens with a trowel. And then the third method that we have here is prey return questionnaires. So this tells us what's been returned home by owned cats. And it's a really useful tool. So it's essentially a survey which is sent to owners of cats in an area. And those owners are then asked to record everything that their cat returns home, so any prey, whether it's alive or dead, whether it's half eaten, or if there's just guts left, or if it's an entire animal. And then we have collar-mounted video cameras. Now, these are really cool pieces of kit. They are very small and attach onto the cat's collar. They record essentially everything that that cat does in a space of about 2 to 8 hours, depending on the size of the battery. And they can tell us exactly what's been killed, how many attempts have been made to capture prey, how many were unsuccessful, how many were successful, and also whether the prey is returned home, eaten, or discarded, which is really important info. So like I said at the beginning, my project is called What the Cat Dragged In. It's essentially an owner questionnaire on quite a large scale. So we're looking at the whole of the UK, including Northern Ireland as well. And this relies on monthly data submissions from our cat owners who have signed up to the project. We also have some collar-mounted video cameras. So this is Alfie on the right-hand side with his little cat cam on. So you can see it's quite small. These units have a battery life of about 2 hours. And they have infrared lights around the lens so we can see in the dark, which is really important as well. So we can see what they're getting up to at night and in the evening time in the winter and things like that. From what we've seen of our cats, I've personally observed Alfie, and he's still able to climb, jump, crawl, play, groom. So he doesn't seem to be restricted at all by this device, which is really important to know as well. And like I said, these cameras allow us to see the proportion of prey that's returned, the proportion that's eaten, and the proportion that's discarded, which is something that we'll use in the larger research project. If you do have a cat and you're interested in signing up, I will put the details up towards the end of how you can do that as well. So these are some of our cats so far. We have over 900 cats in the UK on the project from around 700 owners. So this is the spread on the right-hand side. You can see we've got a really good population in England. It's kind of patchy in Wales. It's a little bit patchy in Scotland, but we have quite a few cats around the most populated areas. And then we have just 3 cats in Northern Ireland, so we could do with a few more there really. And this is on the left-hand side, you've got a few cats here. We have a gallery on the website where you can upload a photo of your cat. So these are some of the cats that are actually on the project as well. So we take on all cats of all ages, as long as they are outdoor going. So even if they spend just an hour outside, that counts as an outdoor cat. So we have a graph here on the right-hand side. You can see we don't have many kittens on the project, but we have a lot of 1 to 3 year olds, and then it slowly drops off and declines as we head towards the 16+ category. And we might be able to expect that that's reflective of the cat age spread in the UK, because there are more younger cats than there are older cats, because they will unfortunately pass away from disease or injury. They might get hit by a car or something like that. So we don't have as many old cats in the world as we do younger cats. So that's possibly reflective of the whole spread in the UK. But we do have, like I said, very few kittens. But it's interesting to watch the kittens because they do seem to predate quite a lot, which is really interesting. So particularly if you have a kitten and you'd like to sign up, then that would be absolutely fabulous. We've got an even split of males and females. It's very even. There's about 5 between the 2 categories, so very, very even. And the vast majority of those are neutered. So it's just a handful of cats that aren't actually neutered in the project. So what we know so far then, this is a bar along the bottom. it's essentially like a pie chart, but it's just not in a pie, it's in a bar. So the majority of this bar, the yellow portion, is made up by mammals, and they constitute about 83% of the cat's wild diet here in the UK. This is the results from this project so far. Then we have about 16% being taken up by birds. And then the remaining 1% is our amphibians and reptiles. Okay, so they mostly hunt mammals. They are very well adapted to hunting mammals and ground-dwelling prey in general. So the birds, generally ground-feeding birds, like sparrows and things like that, maybe the odd pigeon as well. So we also see some seasonal variation, and this is really interesting to look at. So this graph here is the mean prey per cat per month. We have month along the x-axis and the mean prey per cat of the y-axis. And you can see here that as we head towards the winter time, it sort of drops off around December to February. And then we have this peak from sort of June to August, and that's consistent across all years. So we started this project July 2018, and this graph goes up to January 2021. We can see from this though that it is higher in 2020 than previous years, which is really important to point out. And what I think is that this is an impact of lockdown. So it seems that this huge spike in April coincided with lockdown, and what we're seeing is more people being at home to record what their cats have brought home. So before it gets taken away by perhaps another cat, before it gets eaten by their own cat, for example. So we're seeing a lot more of what's actually being returned rather than an increase in predation itself. So then we want to look at whether the prey are dead or alive once they're returned. So this is the proportion alive versus proportion dead. You can see we've got percentage up the y-axis, and again we've got the month along the x-axis as well. And you can see here the lighter coloured yellow is the dead animals, and the darker colour is live animals. So this shows that between 20 and 25% really are alive when they're returned home. But then we want to know what actually happens to this live prey. Does it continue to live and thrive? Are they later killed perhaps by the owner? Are they sent to rehab centres? So we asked that very question on our monthly submission questionnaire. So this is the fate of live prey. You can see from this, again, we've got month along the bottom, and we have the percentage of the y-axis. And we have released in blue. So the vast majority of animals are released. And then we have escaped individuals in yellow, which have just escaped from the cat and run off somewhere into shrubbery and things like that. Rescue centre is in red. So not many have been taken to rescue centres at all. And then we have humanely killed by the owner. So dispatched by the owner in a humane manner in purple, and then unknown is in green. So we can see that a few people are actually killing these animals to sort of put them out of their misery. So these are perhaps the most injured animals, although we don't really know much about the released animals and whether people are just releasing them because it's the easiest thing to do rather than the kindest, or whether they are actually fit to be released back into the wild again. So then we come up onto the effects of different factors to do with the cats. So this is the effect of the cat's age on returns per month. So this is average returns per month up the y-axis and the age categories along the x-axis. And you can see from this box plot that there's no clear impact of age. It does seem to decline. So like I said, the kittens are really interesting, and the highest predating group, although we have fairly few of them. And then it declines as we head towards the sort of 4 to 6s, 7 to 9s, and it stays quite steady. Now this is just preliminary analysis, which is important to point out. So this is just on the first 50 cats that have returned quite a bit of data. So we still have quite a few hundred cats to add to this. So we might see a clearer pattern later on, but this is just something that I can show you now. Now there are a few exceptions to this sort of slight pattern. So you can see the outliers of these small circles on the graph. So there are a couple of outliers in the 13 to 15 and 16 plus groups, where cats may be bringing home 9 prey on average per month, but they're more elderly cats, essentially. So we want to know what else might be influencing this. If age isn't having so much of an impact, we want to know what else might be. Okay. So we looked at whether the cats have a bell on their collar or not. There have been a few studies on this in the past, but it's something that we can take a closer look at as well and gather more information on with a larger sample size, essentially. So we have here on the left no bell and on the right bell. So those that don't wear a bell on the left seem to have higher predation rates, but only slightly, with quite a few outliers coming out the top of that as well. Whereas the ones that wear a bell are consistently very close to 0. So it does look like there's some effect. Again, this is the preliminary analysis on the first 50 cats. So we're not too sure whether there will be a significant effect in the future when we start to add those few hundred more cats in. But at the moment, this isn't a significant effect. So then we come on to the time spent outdoors, and we did this in the summer months and the winter months as well. So this is a scatter plot, and it shows the average returns per month of the y-axis and the time spent outside in hours along the x-axis. And you can see that many of these points are close to 0 returns per month, which is really important. So most cats don't predate much at all, if anything. And then we have a few cats which are around the top, predating, where are we, around 9 animals per month. Now there is a slight increase as we head towards the 15, 20, 24 hours spent outside. But really, it relies on a few of those higher points, which we earlier identified as outliers. So it is highly variable, but it does seem like more time spent outdoors equals a higher predation rate. But again, we'll see when we start to add in more data. And then similarly, this is the winter picture. So very, very similar. Again, this is just the first 50 cats, and it's highly variable, but we are seeing some kind of pattern in there. And then we come on to body condition. So this is quite interesting. So on the left here, you've got 4 pictures of cats. The first A is showing some rib, so it's quite a skinny cat. B is quite a lean cat, and C is a bit chunky. D is quite overweight, so maybe bordering on obese. And we can see from the graph on the right-hand side that we don't have any cats in the D category, but what we do have is an increased predation rate in the A's, and then it sort of drops off to the B and C. So the A seems like there is quite a difference there between A and B and C. But again, this isn't significant. Again, it was only done on the first 50 cats. But it does look like the skinnier cats are perhaps hunting more. Whether that's because they are thinner and leaner and more active and more able to hunt, or whether it's because they are hungrier or perhaps lacking something in their diet, that isn't quite clear yet. Okay, so I'll come on to some conclusions and start to wrap this up. So what we found is that mammals are the top predated group, followed by birds, and then amphibians and reptiles make up the remaining 1%, as you can see in the bar at the bottom. We have a seasonal variation with a peak in the summer and a low in the winter. Most prey returned dead, so around 75 to 80% are dead prey. And of the live prey, a vast majority of those are released, but we might be able to assume that they're dying. It's going to take another questionnaire to figure that out and to see what kind of condition these animals are in when they're actually released back into the gardens and things like that. So we know that age is not a clear indicator of predation, but we're looking into a few other factors that might be. So there is an indication of an effect of the belled collar. Time spent outdoors, both in summer and winter, does seem to correlate, and slimmer cats will generally predate more. But it is important to point out that none of these things are significant, but they may become significant when we start to add in more data. Okay, so like I said before, the project is What the Cat Dragged In. If you are interested and you have a cat or know someone with a cat who might be interested in signing up, you can do that at whatthecatdraggedin.org. So that's our website. There's a registration questionnaire which asks you questions about the age, sex, nutrient status, diet, the time spent outdoors, belled collars, and all that kind of stuff. And then we'll send you a welcome pack, a joining pack with an Excel spreadsheet in it. You just fill that out each month and either email it over to me or submit it online using a form, along with any photos that you might have taken. So it's quite important to us that we have photos as well so that we can positively identify these animals. And you can find us on Facebook and Twitter as well, at Cat Predation. We're on there. And yeah, we look forward to getting some new cats, new faces on the project. We've been running this project for about 2.5 years, and we're looking to run it for just over another year. So when you do sign up, we ask that you sign up for 12 months. But if you'd like to, you can continue that beyond that point as well. Okay, so thank you very much for listening. It's been great to be able to contribute to this conference, and I'll now take any questions. Thank you very much.